Well, hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I am Pastor Josh Pontious, coming to you from Community of Grace Lutheran Church right here in Peoria, Arizona, and it is great to have you join us today. It's especially special because we are kicking off a new message series today. We are looking at mission and vision, those things that we believe that God is calling us to here in this place and around the world, and we're starting off with a message of what isn't changing. And I think that's especially important on a day like today because we are in uncharted territory here, my friends. I now have the distinct honor of being the second ever senior pastor here at Community of Grace, and that might mean a lot to you, with a lot of emotions and thoughts coming with it. It might not mean that much to you because you're new here or you've joined us fairly recently, and so none of this is a surprise. And it's just depending on how long you've been here, we have different opinions on the matter. But at the end of the day, I still think personally that it's pretty darn cool. But a few of you have asked me, how did we get here? How did I end up here? What was the process like for me? And if we wanted to go into the whole thing, it would take way too long, and I would get yelled at for having too long of a message. So I just want to give you a little bit of background on one of the interesting small parts of the process of bringing in a new pastor. Now, normally, when a pastor is asked to consider a new call, to go to a new church, to be the pastor there, we get invited to kind of kick the tires a little bit. See what's going on. See what's the good and the bad and the ugly. There's the documentation that's put together by the church, and then there's a call committee and a board or a council that you got to talk to. You'll talk to staff, and maybe you'll talk to the other pastors that have been involved. You poke around a little bit. You check out websites, the social media, any live streams or online recorded worships, and if you're really lucky, like I was able to come and be here in person and kind of take a look back when nobody was really watching. And inevitably, in that process, you start to notice things about the church, and you start to understand, okay, well, these are the things that I really like, and I'm really excited about, and well, hey, maybe there's some things that maybe I would do a little bit differently, and sometimes it's little stuff, tiny stuff. Sometimes it's bigger stuff that you're kind of going, ooh, something's just not quite right. And even if you're excited about the call, even if you're pretty sure that you're going to take it, you still have a list a little bit. Sometimes it's a big issue. There's something wrong with the congregation's health, or maybe there's something wrong with its finances, or maybe there's some kind of conflict that hasn't been resolved, or maybe there's just something weird about the building that you're kind of going, ooh, maybe we got to switch some things around, or maybe you as a pastor are really into chanting during worship. And when you brought that up during the interview process, they're like, we are not a chanting church. Don't worry, I'm not going to try to bring back chanting. You know, it's just one of those things where, big or little, there's usually a list of things that you're like, what could I do to put my own spin on it? Or what might I need to help fix before we really get the ball rolling? And so some of you have asked, and it's natural to wonder, well, Pastor Josh, what was your list? What was those things that you had? And that's actually kind of a little bit of a problem. I didn't have one. And I don't say that jokingly. I didn't really have it. Now, no church is perfect. I'm not trying to pretend that there aren't little tiny things here and there, because nothing is perfect. And yet, as I did my homework, as I asked around, as I had my interviews and my questions, I started to get worried. Is this place too good to be true? Am I not digging deep enough? Am I not asking the right questions? Because I just keep coming up with all of these positives, and I'm not really finding any negatives. All of my list that I was looking for and was hoping for as a pastor at a church, you check the boxes. Here's the list I put together. Do they have engaging modern music? Check. A comfortable, casual environment? Yep, check. A staff and leadership team that's committed to the future? Check. Outreach that goes out into the community and around the world? Yep, check, you got that. Are youth and families welcome into worship as full participants? Check again. Is it a place where people feel genuinely welcomed and where people see their identities first and foremost as children of God, where whatever distinctions there might be, differences of opinion or any of that kind of thing are kind of secondary to their commitment to love and worship God and to love and serve their neighbors no matter what? check, checkity, check, check, check. I mean, like I said, no place is perfect. I think that churches do need to, from time to time and fairly regularly, evaluate, take a step back and say, hey, is what we're doing still working? Is these methods that we have, are they the absolute best way of reaching out and sharing good news with folks? Of course, you've got to be doing that. And those things can impact a various amount of ministries. And sometimes it's little tweaks that get made here and there, and sometimes it's bigger stuff. We need to constantly be evaluating and changing things if they need to be changed. But from where I stood just over a year ago, as I was contemplating this call, and even now, I say right now, hey, let's just keep doing the thing. The things are going well. We're reaching new folks. People are excited. Let's just do it. If there was one thing that I could point to and say, hey, maybe we could work on this a little bit, it was just a little bit of sadness that there weren't even more people who knew who we were and what we're about. How incredible the message of grace is, not just from pastors, but from the people, this loving and welcoming and engaging and exciting place. Even now, I go around town, I say, hey, I'm a new pastor in town. What church you're at? Not everybody knows where we are. I'd like to work on that, but that's a problem for another day. That's more of a messaging thing than a change thing. That's an add-on. Let's just keep doing these things. And the big push to invite folks later, that's going to come later. We got a couple weeks to go. But before we do any of that, we need to establish and reinforce who we are and what we're about and how our faith has transformed not just our lives, but our community and the places and people around us. And I think one of the best ways we can do that to keep us grounded is to keep ourselves alive and refreshed in spirit. And I think this message that we have today from the book of Hebrews is really important. And it's a little quick primer on the background of this book. There was a group of Christians that started to think, they were Jewish Christians by birth. They grew up Jewish, and then they became followers of Jesus later. They started to think, well, hey, maybe this isn't going so well. Maybe we need to go back and at least become a little bit more Jewish. Maybe that's a little safer. Let's retreat back to the things that we're comfortable with, the way things were before. And one of the things that keeps coming up in this letter to the Hebrews is, hey, that's not only not necessary, but it's not really a great option. If anything, that's moving the wrong way. And so we get this little bit from the 13th chapter right here that we're going to read. And so, for he, Jesus, has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me? Remember your leaders, those who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Do not be carried away by all kinds of strange teachings, for it is well for the heart to be strengthened by grace. On the one hand, just last week, it's not about him. It's not about me. This is all about Jesus. We're reminded in this book of Hebrews that the people that came before us have taught us good things, that the good news that's been handed to us is good, and we should hold on to that, and that new teachings, if they do come, should be in line with that good news. But just because we admire and respect and love the things that came before us doesn't mean we have to always retreat to them. We don't always have to go back to our comfort zone. That this new thing that God is doing, God has promised us is going to be good. That's kind of the whole point of this entire letter to the Hebrews. And so for these next couple of weeks, we're going to explore more of the good things that have been happening and have happened and are happening now, and how they're going to continue to happen in the future, and how we're going to keep doing these things. And as I was exploring and as I was putting together this message, I was trying to evaluate and say, like, hey, what are we doing? And how do we talk about it? And how do we get excited about it? And how does it form our lives? And how can we put it in an easy, memorable, rememberable way? And I came up with this. At the end of the day, our walk of faith as individuals and together as this community of grace is all about just three big things. We gather, we grow, and we go. Gather, grow, go. That's what it's all about. Commit that to memory. I'm sure you're practicing it in your homes right now. And if you can't remember it perfectly just yet, don't worry. I'm going to be using it a lot. Not just over the next couple of weeks, but over the next months and years, because I think that's what we are called to be focused on. And yet in that, it's nothing new. None of these things that we're going to discuss throughout the rest of this message series are brand new things. It's just establishing who we are and what we're about. Moving forward is about building on the incredible things that God has already done through all of you and through all of the people and all of the staff of this place. My biggest hope is that we keep leaning into what God is already up to and helping this world around us know that this place really is an authentic place where they can come and belong and feel welcomed and celebrated and loved. It's kind of like what Pastor Tim said last week. We want to establish this place where everyone is welcomed, accepted, and celebrated for who they are. And yeah, we actually mean that. And it means more than just us knowing it here, but about us taking that message to a world that so desperately needs it. No, not a world that needs it. That's not quite right. People. Genuine, authentic, real people. Normal people that we meet in our everyday lives, our neighbors, our friends, people at the grocery store, and people who are in line for their coffee in front of us. So many people who have been told the worst things about themselves and the worst things about a judgmental God who's coming down to make their lives miserable. People who have been told they're not good enough, that they're not worthy. And so many of these people have been speaking in the name of God, telling them, you're not good enough. My friends, we can do better. We will do better. So we're going to gather, grow, and go. Yeah, see, there it is again. So that we can go and share that story with someone who needs to hear it. So that they can start to come and gather with us. So that they can start to grow in their faith as well. And so that they can start to learn to serve and love through this community of grace. And then they can go out and start that cycle again. Gather, grow, go. But those details, they're going to come in just a couple weeks. You just wait and see. I'm excited to continue this journey together. Amen.